We're here today with Billy Thalheimer, and we're in North Kingston, Rhode Island at Regent headquarters. And I'm amped for this discussion because this is a company I've followed for a while. I think it's a really important example for companies that are building big stuff, complex stuff, tech that you have to mature over time, and to create time matching with your capital and your customers when it takes a while to actually build what you say you're going to build. So it's been an important company for me to watch, and we're going to get into some dope specifics.
I learned about these guys on LinkedIn, seeing the incredible.
Their LinkedIn's dope.
It's really good. But everybody knows I'm a ship nerd, but I'm actually probably as much a plane nerd. And so to see those two things happening in the same space, I'm so stoked to find out how it works. What's going on with. I could tell it's electric drive looking at it. I can't wait to find out more about that. But trying to understand, how they got here, because it seems fast. Like really fast. And if this thing works, it's going to be a game changer.
I think it has some cool details on, everything from computational fluid dynamics to Marine Corps programs of record, and, Cassavac in the Pacific. So, and also getting those poor guys in the Hamptons back to New York on time with their hangovers.
Absolutely.
I always feel sorry for them.
Well, let's get to it.
Welcome to Rebuilding the Fleet, where we engage the people, voices, and ideas behind America's maritime reboot at the intersection of technology and manufacturing. I'm Austin Gray, former Navy intelligence officer and co-founder of Blue Water Autonomy.
And I'm Tim Glenatsis, and I've been building ships for the U.S. Navy and the commercial market for 25 years. From amphibs to destroyers, and now the unmanned warships of the U.S. Navy's future fleet. It's time for some shipbuilding.
Here we go. Okay, so we're here in North Kingston, Rhode Island at Regent headquarters. We're with somebody who's building a company that's been really a model for me to watch, I think for many other founders in the space to watch. They're revitalizing American sea power, but not with ships. These are flying boats. So Billy Thalheimer of Regent, why don't you introduce yourself real quick and we'll roll with the show. I'm super amped to have you here.
Hey, thanks, guys. Awesome to be here. Stoked we're doing this from Regent Global Headquarters here in front of a sea glider. Yeah, I'm Billy Thalheimer, co-founder and CEO at Regent. Regent, we build sea gliders, which are electric flying boats for dual use. On the defense side, we're bringing high-speed maritime dominance to the Indo-Pacific, flying at 180 miles an hour with our hybrid vehicle doing 1,600 miles of range. And then on the commercial side, we have $10 billion in backlog from airlines and ferry companies around the world on an all-electric system that'll do just under 200 miles, basically twice as fast and half the cost of any existing mode of transportation. So we're pretty excited.
Have you said that before? That was like perfect.
Get a lot of practice.
Stump speech.
YC, the first day of YC, they're like, what's your one-liner? What's your elevator pitch?
Oh, you guys are YC?
We're YC, yeah, Winter 21.
Back when it was cool.
Well, I'll tell you what's cool. So I keep looking at Billy, but actually I'm looking at Sea Glider. And this is an incredible space and a really cool setup. And we're super stoked to be here. So usually we kick off by asking you what you're doing, like what are you up to? And you sort of, you just cranked that out right away. You guys are building Sea Gliders. And so maybe you could tell us about how you got into that space. Like what brought you here?
Yeah, so I've been a aerospace aviation nerd all my life. I went to MIT undergrad and grad. That's where I met my co-founder, our chief technology officer, Mike Klinker. So we went through the aerospace engineering program together. I was aircraft design, aerodynamics.
What course is that?
Course 16. Yeah, you got it. They're all numbered.
Yeah.
Actually, we're all MIT guys. That's pretty rough.
My course is gone.
Yeah.
The ocean engineering.
Ocean engineering is gone.
It's now part of course 2.
It became, and some of it went over into course 12, Earth and Planetary Science, which I dabbled in and then decided I was an engineer. But anyways, the co-founder was flight controls and software. So between the two of us, we could build an airplane. Spent some time at Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, decided I liked mobility, transportation better, wound up at a company called Aurora Flight Sciences, which was based in Cambridge, Mass, working on electric aviation sort of before it was cool, became cool with these eVTOLs. Boeing acquired Aurora, really cool time to be in that space. So I was an engineer, moved into program management, working on sort of the early days of eVTOL. We actually built Boeing's first eVTOL before Whisk. And basically through that process, was enamored with the electrification technology, the fact that we can drastically reduce the cost of these systems compared to, internal combustion or jet engines, but also increase the safety, reduce the noise. The sustainability aspect is great too, but it was very difficult to do in aviation. So the certification pathway, long and difficult, the range was tough. And we basically said, how do we take all this great technology and bring it to market in a way that's faster and longer range?
Is the main trade-off range, you think, or what are the other trade-offs?
Yeah. So in terms of electric versus sort of conventional, range is a really big one. And so, basically this came down to an economic principle. The main cost of short haul aviation is the maintenance cost. Aircraft age by cycles. I know we're on a ship show, but we'll bring it there soon.
Ship maintenance is all jacked up too. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll bring it there. But thinking from the aircraft perspective, which was sort of the initial market we were looking to disrupt with these vehicles, they age by the cycle. So you take off and land, and you impact the landing gear. You expand and contract the fuselage when you go up to altitude. You heat and cool the engines. All of that is wear and tear. The shorter your routes, the less fuel you're burning, the less you're paying your pilots, but drastically more maintenance you're causing because you're driving up that cycle count. So we said we're going to attack the biggest part of the cost bucket, which is the maintenance, by moving to these all-electric systems, the same sort of maintenance reduction you see in automotive. We're actually going to use a lot of the same technology as automotive. And so now we have something here, and to our commercial customers who are using our all-electric vehicles or have orders for our all-electric vehicles, we're talking about halving the operating costs from existing aircraft of today.
That is a really interesting, the focus on maintenance as a function of cycles is something we don't think about that in ships. Hours runtime usually the driver, but it's not until you actually think about what you just said when you look at the Sea Glider. It takes a minute to realize that you're not actually running fuel in the wings, or we call them wings.
Yes, yeah, we can call them wings, but this is a hull.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a mix. That was like the first year of Regent, was just figuring out what we call things we point to.
But you're not running fuel, to your usual internal combustion, turbines. So your conduit and electrical, I presume, in the wings, and
100%. So it's all about simplicity, drive the cost down, simplicity, and which is not just great for commercial. That's what, we take admirals and generals around here and we show them this propulsion system. And it's like, think of the maintenance cost, think of the supply chain to get spares in the field. Each of these motors are held on with 6 bolts and a few plugs. So you can pop one off and back on again in 15 minutes with 1 or 2 guys in the field. So
if we, normally you get to the maintenance part, at the end of the discussion, you start with the sexy thing up front, right? So what's the mission profile for the electric commercial variant? And then what's the mission profile that the Marines want right up front?
Awesome. Well, I'll start with sort of the same profile for all sea gliders is float, foil, and fly. So that's what really distinguishes a sea glider from flying boats, seaplanes, even past wing and ground craft. Not really proliferated, but they do exist before. So in the commercial mission, you go down to the dock, you board it like a boat. You don't need to take your shoes off for TSA. You just hop right on. As you leave the harbor, we rise up on hydrofoils. So these are underwater wings that lift the vehicle up on struts, basically. We have some awesome videos on our website of this because we're out in the water testing this now.
How fast does that happen?
So that happens. We rise up on the hydrofoils at about 18 knots, 20 miles an hour or so, get up to about 50 knots top speed or almost 60 miles an hour. So we're basically the fastest hydrofoiling boat in the world already on the hydrofoils. And the hydrofoils...
Have you gone to full 50 already?
We're up to about 35 knots or so far. Yeah. Okay. We're working our way there. So, but importantly, they give us wave tolerance that no flying boat or seaplane in history have had. We're using this technology from racing yachts like America's Cup, Sail GP, to insulate the Sea Glider from waves so we can take off in a 5-foot sea state or almost sea state 4.
Great.
So that's a really big deal.
That's what I was going to say. So it's about sea state 4 where you're basically impervious.
Exactly. Exactly. So now we can get up to that 50 knots of speed, even in a sea state, and take off into the air. We take off, we retract the hydrofoils, so it's sort of like takeoff gear instead of landing gear, and then we fly in what's called the ground effect. So the ground effect is this cushion of air over the surface of the water that gives us this aerodynamic efficiency, and that's what also gives us our long range.
Wow.
So that's the operation. So commercial, let's say we're headed from here in Rhode Island to New York City. We can go dock to dock, door to door. If we were to drive or fly or take the train, that's probably 3 hours. But we're going to do it in an hour on a Sea Glider for half the cost of any of those today.
Awesome.
Go down the dock, hop in, float, foil through the harbor, fly after we hit the bridge. We're going to fly right down.
You're going to hit the bridge like that
Yeah, right. We'll probably foil under the
New York
bridge.
did it. Baltimore did it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The Ukrainians did it to the
pretty good
Russians. It's
controls
kind
on
of
this one.
it's a big thing the last few years.
That's a future business model, not this one.
and then we'll land sort of outside the East River. We can foil through the whole East River, and so we can do those littoral operations too. And then we'll dock on the other side.
Wow.
So that's commercial. A lot of that is still applicable in defense. In defense, we're now on a longer range system. So we've taken out half the batteries of the Sea Glider and replaced it with the turbo generator fuel system. So it lets us do that 1,400 nautical miles or 1,600 miles of range. So missions in defense, contested logistics, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Smith, said this is the most important part of the Indo-Pacific operation for a naval campaign.
So is there a hatch on the back end of the...
There is a cargo door and hatch on the back end. So extra wide, we can fit pallets on board.
What's the weight capacity for the hybrid variant?
So 3,500 pounds, consistent between the electric and the hybrid. It's actually a pretty even weight swap.
So could you do less range with more weight?
On the fuel version, we're looking at that. On the electric version, you can't because you don't really swap out batteries.
It's a total ship question.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we have a displacement hull for our ship. And there we can definitely trade because weight's not a big deal, but it's very different for aviation. I understand.
Yeah. So we're flying, so there is that trade, and so contested logistics is a really big one. We're going back to World War II style expeditionary operations. We have austere environments where we need to move around fast between them. So that's a key mission.
These things aren't like $100 million a pop, right? Because for the Marines, if you want to risk them, they need to be a little bit affordable. I think.
Exactly. No, it's under $10 million a copy, and the operating cost is actually an order of magnitude less than existing helicopters that are doing a lot of these missions. So it's safer, it's easier to operate, it's more reliable. And then some other missions, just to sort of bring this home, would be medevac is a huge one. We can land on the water, get people out.
I talked to a Marine medevac planner and mentioned you guys last week.
Yeah. It's a huge
I was like,
deal.
you don't want a ship, you want craft.
The lead of Regent Defense is a former Coast Guard helicopter search and rescue pilot, and he's done that before. And you're a sitting duck for a while. And then finally, launched effects is a big one too. So the Sea Glider, as awesome a platform as it is, we think about it as a bus, and so you can load all sorts of stuff on the bus, and we can also load smaller systems doing their own thing.
What's the, imagine when you think about the success, like Regent's wildly successful, like the way you have it in mind, is that we see these all up and down the coasts, we see them deployed, and maybe you could just describe for us, what's that look like?
Wild success for Regent is just Sea Gliders are part of a fabric of commercial and defense operations, just full stop. Like, your kids are in school and kindergarten learning about the modes of transportation, and it's cars and boats and trains and planes and Sea Gliders. Like, it is that known that it's taught. So 40% of the world lives in coastal population. So we're going to change the way people live, because you don't need to live in the coastal city anymore. You don't need to live in New York City. You can live all throughout the coast within, 200 to 400 miles as battery technology gets better, and you can commute for this very low cost and time. So we're changing commuting. We're going to change how forces operate in maritime environments, and all the key theaters of conflict right now are maritime. This is a huge push, as you guys well know, but Indo-Pacific, the Gulf, the Red Sea, the Baltic Sea, like this is where future conflicts are, and Sea Gliders are going to play a critical role in all of them.
Are any of our adversaries working on Sea Gliders?
China just launched a wing and ground craft. So this was a big deal for wing and ground circles. There's maybe a dozen of us around the world, but this was a big deal for us.
There's 12 guys.
Yeah, 12 guys that are following the wing and ground network.
I thought my Twitter circles were small.
No, this is...
It's like shipbuilding until 2 months ago.
It blew up the wing and ground network. But no, so China's actually working on this. So sort of going way back to the Soviet Union and one of the sort of early experimenters with this ground effect concept, they built what's called the Akronoplans. Probably the best known one, the Caspian Sea Monster.
I was going to say the Russian.
Yeah. So definitely look this up. It's worth a
massive,
Wikipedia deep dive. 300 tons, 300 mile an hour, like a flying battleship, all kitted out with weapons. It's got 8 Soviet era turbojets on the thing. It looks really mean. And they proved that this works. Like the ground effect augments lift, so you can carry a lot more with less wingspan, with less fuel, etc. The problems that they had are actually the ones we're solving today. They had problems with wave tolerance. They had problems with maneuverability that we solve with our hydrofoils. They had problems with safety, and they would crash all the time. And we have digital flight control systems on board. But I bring them up because this one in these Twitter circles, they started calling it the Bohai Sea Monster. together. But, China's building their own jet-powered wing and ground now. And to us, like there's some interesting stuff going on there, but the design of theirs is going to have the same sea state intolerance and the same difficulty of operation that the Soviets had 60 years ago. So sea gliders are differentiated with those hydrofoil systems and these advanced control systems. So the U.S. will still be able to operate in high sea states in different weather conditions and still maintain that upper edge.
Yeah. I think, pivoting a little bit to, why we're able to do all this, what's the biggest tech challenge you guys have had to overcome the last few years? Or design challenge or design lesson, that's you had to change something.
Yeah, so the whole concept of a sea glider is we're going to take the maneuverability and the wave tolerance of the hydrofoils, which, are not a recent invention themselves, but really only sort of recently with these racing series like the America's Cup and Sail GP have sort of become available to do cool stuff with and be controllable and move them around and retract and stuff. So we're going to combine the wave tolerance and maneuverability of the foil with the speed of a wing. And that's been hard to do historically because those are two drastically different speed regimes. It's difficult to foil fast. It's difficult to control hydrofoils. Water is almost 1,000 times more dense than air. And so these foil systems are taking immense load. They're extremely sensitive to small movements of the foils. And then if you go too fast, just to nerd out technically for a second, you hit what's called cavitation, which is where the suction side of your hydrofoil lowers the pressure so much that you boil the water.
It's a big problem with propellers on ships.
And it's the exact same phenomenon on ships. So you lose your lift if you spin them too fast and sort of that foil creates too much lift. So that sets a top speed of the foil. And then for airplanes, you have what's called stall, which is you don't have enough air going over your wings, you lose lift, and you fall out of the sky. So that sets the lower speed of flight, and cavitation sets the upper speed of foils. And historically, there has been a gap between those two speeds. So we're the first company ever that has overlapped those so we can take off directly from a hydrofoil. That comes down to advanced foil design and modeling controls. That also comes down to the blown wing. So I don't know if it's in frame here, but you can see these distributed propellers along the wing. This is called a blown wing. It's not a very creative name. We are blowing the wing with the prop wash. So basically by putting the wing right behind that line of propellers, the propellers blow high-speed air over the wing. The wing sees fast-moving air. Even though the sea glider's moving slowly, we're sort of tricking the wing to generating high lift at low speeds. Yeah. And so now we can slow down that takeoff speed. Our digital control systems and our advanced hydrofoil design speeds up the hydrofoil speed, and we can go between them. So figuring out that whole process, how do we design and control the foil? How do we configure the electric propulsion system? How do we instantly switch from an automatic hydrofoil controller to an automatic air flying thing controller? That was really the whole technical hard part.
That's a lot.
We need to do another one of these. We really deep dive this. It's so awesome. So let's say, the state of Rhode Island shows up tomorrow and says, we want 100 of these.
Yeah.
How's that look for you?
In terms of manufacturing capacity So we are building, we're building fast. So just down the road here, a couple minutes away, we're building our factory. So that's 255,000 square feet, one of the bigger buildings on the park here. And so that'll open in early 26. So we've actually already booked out a couple years of capacity with both commercial customers who are putting non-refundable deposits down, like big chunky deposits to hold their spot in line, and also defense customers. We've been working with the Marine Corps for a couple of years now, so they're getting in line for a couple sea gliders as well for experimentation here. So we're building now.
Do you think, ballpark, is it like, 20 a year possible? What do you think is, when you look down the road, how quickly could you build them, and how possible is it to go fast?
Early on, it's about ramping as fast as we can, but ensuring we have quality. Right. This is our first manufacturing center for our Eastern Hemisphere commercial customers. We announced previously we're expanding into Abu Dhabi as well, and sort of we'll learn a lot of the lessons here, carbon copy it there. We could go even bigger. So by the 2030s, 2031 plus, we'll be making 100 plus sea gliders a year.
Wow. Cool.
With the Marines, so you guys are working with McWill, I think? Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're fighting that.
And so they can, buy one or maybe two or something, but like, need to go to production? Is there a program of record? coming down the pipe? What's the pathway and the pipeline look like there?
That's what we're working on. So generally, the program of record in the Marines, who's been our primary customer really since the get-go, and it's been a real pleasure working with them, is the following. You start in the R&D center, so that's Marine Corps Warfighting Lab, that's sort of the incubator. You start with sort of design reviews, con-op, sort of early experimentation. They were out on the water with us, and they were driving our quarter-scale prototype, which we're actually now productizing as a small drone. So now they're out on the water with us, going through sea trials, and we're actually just out a couple weeks ago in sea trials for the full scale, for the Viceroy. So again, just putting it through its paces, and later we'll move into actually demonstrating some of these missions I talked about, contested logistics, medevac, et cetera. I told them I want them to pull me out of the water. I want to be the first guy rescued by a sea glider.
I trust it.
Yeah. And so then you need to transition from the R&D center into the acquisitions program. So in the Marine Corps, that goes through the MROC, the Marine Requirements Oversight Committee, which is basically, the top dog from each of the relevant services, who basically make this appeal recommendation to the commandant to put it in the budget and make that request to Congress. Then you get in the POM cycle, the program objective memorandum. So that's like a 3-year look ahead cycle.
But you guys are kind of working with McWill, and I'm guessing now trying to shape that requirements process.
It's exactly
and
right.
trying to get the director requirement from the commandant, and hopefully he can find budget if it's a big priority for him.
That's exactly right.
I read the budget, and there's no PE line saying like sea gliders, so
right. So it starts
right.
It starts with that requirement, which is now what we're working on. We basically worked enough with the warfighting lab to start developing that, and then we'll go through the remainder of those processes.
Yeah. But I mean, big time props to be the CEO talking about MROCs and POMs.
Dude, I am in it. I am in it all the way, and it's critical to us. And actually, the Marine Corps. What's great as a dual use company is sort of the commercial supports defense supports commercial. So initially, it's very easy to, well, not easy to, but it is clear to book a commercial order and have a pre-delivery payment schedule, and I can show those contracts, and I can very much count on those. And in defense, it's a little squishier with the R&D stuff, and we're on an OTA, but it's also sort of squishy in Congress cycles. So we're building up this commercial, but then when the program of record hits, I mean, that's a $1 to $3 billion program of record between acquiring the fleet of sea gliders and the aftermarket services. So that becomes a huge chunky one, likely 20 to 30 sea gliders a year for a decade, sort of takes over our order book. And then in the long term, the commercial market for us, again, with that 40% of the world living in coastal communities, between passenger and commercial cargo, it's a $600 billion market. So it sort of goes back and forth between commercial and defense. But important for me, where we see the Marine Corps as our anchor customer very shortly, I got to know this stuff.
I mean, it's great. I actually spent a big part of my career selling to both commercial and government customers. And the government customer is much harder to predict, but their checks never bounce. So, once you get that lined up, it's good.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, thinking about the infrastructure and the workforce and supply chain and all that, where would you say, what are the biggest bottlenecks, in terms of, getting the sea glider, on the water, commission and all that? What did you struggle with the most?
Yeah, I mean, with any prototype, and particularly ones where you're flying, and particularly ones where you have humans on board, and so even though our control systems are automated, we wanted to show from the get-go that eventually we're going to be carrying human passengers and human cargo or human payload. So we wanted to go human from the get-go and just prove we have those safety systems on board. So whenever you're doing that, it places great significance on the design of the vehicle, the redundancies, the failure modes and recovery methods, et cetera. So I would say it's really like the engineering process of putting this thing together. This thing is also all carbon fiber. All the primary structure is carbon fiber, and building carbon fiber at this scale with the precision we need to, because it's aerospace grade, even though we live and operate and are certified in the maritime domain, is a big challenge, and we're really innovating in that space as well.
So are you doing the carbon fiber yourselves?
Yes, we will be in the, so we partnered for the prototype from several shops, and for the production vehicle, we're going to be having that in-house. So about, a quarter to a third of that manufacturing facility is going to be carbon.
You're going to have a center of excellence here in no time. I mean,
absolutely.
That's big league work.
Well, it's one of the things that brought us to Rhode Island too, is we can leverage a lot of the local boat building talent. I mean, this is the center of the sailing world in the country. And so we have some of the greatest naval architects, composite technicians, and boat builders in the whole country, in the whole world, within a few miles of us here.
So how's Rhode Island been?
It's been awesome. It's been really awesome. You know, it was when we were pitching investors early and we told them we were moving to Rhode Island or we're based in Rhode Island, the Silicon Valley of the East, so to speak. You know, we'd all get a lot of weird looks. Like, why are you there? What's going on there? But for us, it made perfect sense. We have incredible test space in Narragansett Bay here. We have access to all these boat builders. We have this facility, you know, as a Series A company, we had raised a total of $80 million or so total, you know, to date, and we're building a $50 million manufacturing facility next door. So like you can only do that sort of stuff when you have this incredible state buy-in and just from, you know, Rhode Island Commerce and our incentive package here as we grow to some of the infrastructure development funds to manufacturing reimbursement to even, you know, partnering with Quonset, which is the development here on docking and test facility infrastructure and funding. Like we've vastly leveraged what we're raising in venture markets, and it's been a really great spot for us.
Speaking of bottlenecks in the government, on the regulatory side, I think you guys have made a lot of progress recently. And by the time this goes on the air, you'll have announced that some of that progress. You want to share a little more details there?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the commercial side, on the civil side, we are regulated by the U.S. Coast Guard. Sea gliders are vessels. We're actually in statute in U.S. law. Not many people see this. You know, the 12 winging round people, Twitter knows about this, but to everyone else, so Title 46 is shipping law. And if you scroll down Title 46 and Control F for wing and ground craft, you'll actually see it there. Wing and ground craft defined as a vessel and under maritime jurisdiction, which aligns with the definition internationally between the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, and ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. So they also say, as long as you're staying in the ground effect, which means within a wingspan of the surface, our wingspan 65 feet. So as long as we're flying under that, which by the way, is below the height of a sailboat mast, it's well below the height of a cruise ship. So very much in the maritime domain, we are regulated as a vessel.
That is a strikingly sensible definition.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected it from there, but that makes a lot of sense.
And it's great. And it's, you know, domestic and international. So there's this great alignment too. And also reflected by the class societies. So I think probably the viewership of this show gets this more than most people I talk to, but we're actually working with Lloyd's Register on the first ever wing and ground craft class. So we're really doing sort of 3 cert processes in parallel.
And so now y'all are approved for some testing?
Yeah. So we previously, and the sort of previous exciting announcement here was that we received our NISRA, the basically the safety inspection and approval for human flight testing in the Bay. And the recent thing we did, and super excited to announce, was that submittal of the design basis agreement. So that is the full package, the full set of rules to the Coast Guard, where if we build and sea trial to those rules, we will be given that certificate of inspection at the end of the day. We'll be ready to be an operational vessel.
Same process for ships.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's really interesting.
How high are you allowed to fly?
So within a wingspan of the surface of the water, right? Okay. So that'll be within that 65 feet. Typically, we're going to fly around 30 feet. Okay. So yeah, a little bit lower.
I can't wait to see it. So are there any emerging tech issues, like opportunities you see around the corner that, I mean, maybe not just for what you're doing, but in general, anything that's got you excited, emerging technology wise?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're seeing how GPU development and AI can affect a lot of our physics models right now. So the thing with aerospace generally and flight controls is you need to build them in sort of a classical way. It needs to be deterministic algorithms. Like it's sort of striking that in the age of AI, we get like so stoked about the SpaceX launch and landing and recovery, and like that is incredible, and it's like there's not AI there. Like that is just hardcore, old school, flight mechanics.
Did you see the one yesterday?
Yeah.
Why did it blow up at the end? Do we know that?
I don't think we figured that one out yet.
It was pretty amazing, but just,
yeah, Elon will probably do a full after action on
Twitter,
exactly.
But anyway, so like you need that hardcore mathematics, and when you're putting people on board, like it needs to be deterministic, so you can't use AI. But for the underlying physics, which are incredibly computationally demanding to model air and model water. And for us, and very few people are doing this, modeling them both together at that interface, like that's hard to do. And so moving the codes from the old CPU codes with superclusters into GPU-enabled codes, which are coming out now. And then if you can actually train AI models, and you still need to validate them, but if you can train AI models as sort of surrogates to sort of figure out how these fluids interact, and then you can actually start to use AI to sort of get close.
Sort of cheat CFD.
You can cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's very new. So I'd say the AI stuff is not in our existing vehicle today. We had to rely on codes, but we did leverage GPU codes, which are significantly faster than the CPU codes. But on the horizon, I can see that working into the overall vehicle design process.
You must do a lot of CFD.
Tons of CFD. It was funny because going back to YC.
Computational fluid dynamics for the audience.
Yes, so we're modeling how the air works and how the water works. We do both, air and water, both fluids. So back in Y Combinator, they're giving out these Amazon credits to the cloud, and because most of them are SaaS companies and they need Amazon credits for the website, and we're like, we need Amazon credits because we are chewing through CFD right now. So it's sort of a novel challenge for them.
I want to know one more thing about sort of a current events topic. Like,
let's do it.
What are these 12, probably all dudes who follow, wing and ground? Like, what are you guys talking about right now? Like, what's the hotness besides the Taylor and Travis situation?
Yeah.
But that aside.
Probably us, honestly. Like, not to toot our own horn, but like we are going to be the first wing ground craft in America to fly since like 1989 was the last time a wing and ground craft flew in the U.S. No wing and ground craft ever has gotten a classification, has gone all the way through. None have ever been certified, and none have made it into an acquisitions program with DoD. So right now in our test campaign, we float, foil, and fly. So we're in that foiling mode. We're coming up to speed. About 35 knots or so, coming up to 50 miles an hour. So right now we're working on being the fastest foiling boat in the world, and then we'll solve being the slowest flying machine in the world shortly thereafter. I got on board a couple of weeks ago, which was awesome. So actually my co-founder and I were driving the boat, driving the Sea Glider, putting our butts where we said they were.
The LinkedIn game is awesome right now. I'm loving those videos.
We want to tell the world about it. I mean, we are so excited about it. But no, so I mean, this summer, not to toot our own horns, but it just has been so exciting. Like we've been working, Regent, we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary since founding in November. So we've done this really fast. But we've been working on this thing for 2 or 3 years on the full scale vehicle. So to see it on the water now and actually, get on board and drive it, it's just super exciting.
Do you have T-shirts with the float, foil, and fly?
They're coming out. We're getting ready to launch a store at some point.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we like to do at the end of the show. We like to do we call lightning round.
All right.
And we just fire a couple questions at you and just top of your head.
And if you go long, we'll cut it down to like 2 or 3 random words
Yes.
that you didn't intend to be the answer.
All right. So what's the most underrated, say, shipyard or maritime company in your mind right now?
I'm gonna go to my neighbors in Quonset Point here, Sinesco Marine. Really like those guys.
Love
they're
those
building.
guys.
They're
We do
local.
too.
It's no, they're
Big
great
fans.
guys. Ted's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
What's the most interesting DoD program to watch in FY26? If there was a wing and ground effect program on board, I would say that's it, but there's not one yet. So
Well, we're working on extending our OTA into 26 right now, and that'll actually be the acquisitions program for the experimentation. So I'm going to go back to Regent again, shamelessly,
Oh,
and
great.
26 is going to be exciting.
What's a tech that you think is overhyped?
I like these companies. I like the guys at them, but I think we're starting to get, just as drones became very overcrowded very quickly because of the moat, I'm a little bit worried that we're seeing the surface vessels, the small surface vessels go in that same game. Just because the moat is not very large, you take a small boat, you throw some autonomy on it.
there are a lot of small boat companies
There's
out
a lot
there
of
now.
small boats. There's a lot of hype about it, which is great. I mean, we need them. I think there's a real role for them, but the differentiation is a little bit lacking in some cases.
And what's your like quick fire advice for a founder looking to go into aerospace or maritime?
I think founding anything is really hard. And like you listen to the greats, it's like Elon's like, it's like eating glass every day, right? So it's like you got to be ready for a fight every day. You got to really love what you're doing. And I think particularly in the land of hardware and building stuff, like it's even harder. Shit breaks and you got to fix it. Right. You can't just revert your code base. So your planning cycles are longer. In some cases, you got to be a little bit more clever about where you're raising capital from and how you're supplementing venture with other sources. So just be ready for that, be creative, and have the passion to get through that.
What do you think kids should be studying right now?
they should be studying what they love, for starters, because I think like if you are, I forget who said it, but there was sort of like the triangle of like what you're good at, what you love, and what adds value to the world. So like figure out what that triangle looks like for yourself and put yourself at the intersection of that triangle. I do think everyone generally, just the world we live in now, should learn programming. Like I was a programmer when I was doing conceptual design. I like learned Fortran, and now I'm like writing with ChatGPT. So it's great. So probably like learn programming and learn AI and just like understand how to leverage those tools. It's just the world we live in, but do something you love.
This has been great. So where can people follow you and see more content? And or if investors want to like preempt the next round or anything.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, myself, no. So we're at regentcraft.com and our defense divisions at defense.regentcraft.com, where we deep dive on that sort of expanded portfolio and some of the mission cases there. We're on Instagram at regentcraft, X at regentcraft, very strong LinkedIn game. So follow us on all those places.
Awesome. Okay, so final thought. So if you have 30 seconds in front of White House, Pentagon, industry leaders, somebody with authority, what do you say?
I think we need to overhaul CBERS. We need to kill DARPA. I'd love to
kill DARPA. That's new.
Yeah, no, we're killing DARPA. I've been vocal about that too. I think we need to, the OSC loan program was 9 times oversubscribed. That means people want to build in America. Like, you don't need to enact tariffs to do that. The demand is here. So fund that. And then let's actually build real stuff so I can build with low interest rate, nationally secured OSC funding instead of venture funding. So those are my quick fixes.
DARPA did like $100 million like Liberty Lifter Sea Glider, right? They were copying the Russians, maybe at the Caspian.
They were copying the Russians. Yeah, exactly. It's been that was sort of the thing that did it, is like, I think DARPA, back in the day, like we have the internet and we have some incredible innovations from DARPA, but over the past 20 years, there's very little that has actually been transitioned from DARPA, and the sort of the goal of R&D and doing DARPA hard stuff in many cases is satisfied now by groups like the NSF and by academia, et cetera. And so DARPA hard without an end use case, it does not really seem like a great use of taxpayer dollars.
I think this needs to be a Substack feature between the two of you. You guys can really put something killer together on this.
I think some guy was like trying to argue to save the Liberty Lifter, the DARPA lifter on LinkedIn. I think Billy and I rocked him. Yeah. Like, I don't really remember. I don't remember what I said, but I think that there was some exchange.
And I think last year. I think the intent is good. Yeah. Like, I know people that worked on that project.
So expensive.
Like, they work hard, but it's like, if you are not under the gun to deliver something, right? And the issue with DARPA is it is run at academic paces. So, that program spent $80+ million over years, and all that really came out of it are reports and wind tunnel and, wave studies. And like, we have a full scale prototype on the water we're about to fly in the same amount of time for the same amount of money. So if you have that urgency and that, like, you are crossing the valley of death, that is live or die, you must execute. I can't believe that DARPA instills that same sense of urgency in the performers.
You'll love this. We at Blue Water are doing sea-based testing for 1/10 the cost the Navy did land-based testing.
Right.
It's insane.
So it's like
and I'm sure that's the case for many startups.
You need pressure. Yeah. You need a fire under your ass to drive innovation. You need to be fearing death every day, and that's what gets you on your workstation, your computer, out on the water testing for that extra hour. So
I think that's where we should end it. I think we should all, the three of us, feel a lot of pressure every day to go build some dope maritime technology and sea power for America.
Before we do that, though, I'm going to go sit inside the cabin here.
It's pretty comfy.
Yes, let's take a ride.
I was just out there. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Billy, thanks.
Thanks, guys.